have heard a lot about the impact made by Maulana Muhammad Ali's English Quran translation and commentary in different parts of the world in the past, whether it was white England or black America. This Quran translation and commentary made a profound effect. Our next two speakers present an equally remarkable juxtaposition. One is Arab and one is Jew. Both are translators of Maulana Muhammad Ali's work. Both are great admirers of Maulana Muhammad Ali. And both are hopeful that their respective translations in Arabic and Hebrew will facilitate prospects for better understanding and peaceful relations in the region. First, we have Professor Hussain Ali from Cairo, Egypt. He is a professor of applied linguistics.
And they helped me understand many things, particularly when it comes to lexicology, lexical items in the Holy Quran. Also, they make good use of many of the Holy Prophet's hadith and sayings, which were originally said to explain some verses. More importantly still, they explain some of the occasions when certain verses were sent down to the Holy Prophet. However, I could not understand why they mentioned so many stories, some even maybe contradicting one another when they interpret some verses. Some are even childlike, like those particularly mentioned in the interpretation of chapter 18, the cave of Yagog and Magog and all these incidents. At that time, I gave up reading more interpretations. At that time also, secular humanists and freethinkers grew in number and visibility in Egypt. They casted doubt on everything, and for a while my mind was blurred, and I could not find logical arguments when arguing with my freethinkers colleagues. In addition, terrorism worsened the situation as Muslims were accused of being violent. I never lost my faith in Allah, and I never stopped reading the Holy Quran, but I was praying every day to find answers to the questions asked all the time by secular humanists who tried to cast doubt on the holy message of the Quran. When trying to find my way out of darkness of doubt, I received a telephone call from a lady who asked to meet with me for a translation project. She came the next day and met me for 15 minutes. She said, "I want you to translate Maulana Muhammad Ali's commentary on the Holy Quran." Although at that time I was so busy and I could hardly find time for my own readings, I agreed. She said, "I want it within 1 year." For me, that was not possible. And so I thought perhaps Allah did not want me to do that work. I was about to decline, as it was really impossible to find time within 1 year to finish anything. But as if she could read my mind, she said deeply and passionately, "But there is no problem if it takes more than 1 year." Yeah. That lady is Mrs. Samina Malik, whom I like to call Mother Samina, actually. She's indeed an inspiring person, and she inspired me in many of the things I do in my life. She came to my office looking for a translator and spent 15 minutes with me. But by the time when she went out, she left behind her a great deal of inspiration and love. She left behind her a guy praying to God to take him closer to the truth. Working on that translation took me many steps closer to the truth, to the Holy Quran, to life, and to myself. As a person who works in the field of education, and as a linguist, I find myself consciously and unconsciously analyzing how people process information. And I want to tell you something about education in Egypt, maybe the whole Arab world. In fact, in the Egyptian educational system, we focus more on knowledge rather than on skills. So you find people who memorize the Holy Quran interpretation by heart. They think that there is some sort of authority springing from their knowledge. And for them, as well as for many people, particularly when it comes to the Holy Quran interpretation, skills like analyzing, criticizing, evaluating, etc., may not be of any value. For them, it is knowing rather than knowing how. As a result, they looked at the interpretations of the Holy Quran, the interpretations, not the Holy Quran, they looked at the interpretations of the Holy Quran written in the 10th to the 13th centuries as sacred writings in themselves. Any attempt to evaluate or criticize is taken as heresy. And this takes me to Maulana Muhammad Ali's approach in his commentaries. In this context, I would like to start with what Sheikh Mahmoud Shaltut, the late president of Al-Azhar, explains in his introduction to his commentaries on the Quran. He says, in the Middle Ages, at the time when different groups took sides in Islam and political as well as sectarian differences emerged, and people categorized one another as belonging to such or such group, at that time, politics has the upper hand over religion. So people looked at the Holy Quran and started writing commentaries so as to support particular political views. These views were documented and kept up till our times. By time these interpretations were taken as sacred writings, people were afraid to look into the Holy Quran differently, and so they took these commentaries as the final word. And this is similar to what Maulana Muhammad Ali wrote in his revised, in the preface to his revised edition to Quran Tafsir. Maulana Muhammad Ali said, I must add that the present tendency of Muslim theologians to regard the commentaries of the Middle Ages as the final word on the interpretation of the Holy Quran is very injurious and particularly shuts out the great treasures of knowledge which an exposition of the Holy Book in the new light reveals, a study of the old commentators, to ignore whose great labor would indeed be a sin, also shows how freely they commented on the Holy Quran. The great service which they have done to the cause of truth would indeed have been lost to the world if they had looked upon their predecessors as uttering the final word on the exposition of the Holy Quran, as most theologians do today. Maulana Muhammad Ali did not take the final word from his previous commentators without critical thinking. His commentary is, in fact, training for readers to think critically. The most significant feature of his commentary is that it is written in an academic style that keeps a balance between the Holy Quran as a book of guidance and the Holy Quran as a book for contemplation. The contemporary addresses the mind, the heart, and the soul. In addition, his commentary is a multi-approach. He carries out linguistic analysis to find out the original meaning of words. He uses historical and geographical evidence to support the meaning, and he uses the Holy Books to disambiguate and proves that the Quran is the final message from Allah. I have the chance in my career to examine various Quran translations as a scholar, as a supervisor, and as a teacher of translation, trying to find practical examples to support theories of translation that we teach in classes, taking into consideration that the Holy Quran is multi-layered in meaning and that its style is too elegant and pure for any translator. I could not find a translation which is academic enough to support my views on translation. Most translators realize that Quran translation cannot contain the multi-layered meaning of the Holy Quran. As a solution, they either use literal translation or communicative translation. Maulana Muhammad Ali actually combined these together. So he is using literal translation, but the footnote added a sort of communicative translation to facilitate understanding, a feature which is really found in other translations. I did my best to keep all the features and the meaning of the text intact, and I hope the Arabic version motivates people to exert more effort to study Islam and reform the religious Islamic discourse, and rather than inspiring just fear and love like most Arabic religious literature, they inspire mutual understanding and respect among different cultures and traditions. Thank you.